Hi guys, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay guys, I've got an article here that I want to go through because this is another one of those ones that can help you guys to try and make money while holding XRP for the long term. So the article says, XRP lending infrastructure could unlock new borrowing strategy, analyst says. Now, one of these things that we're going to cover here is something I've actually already gone through, but there's a couple of avenues here that's being brought up. So I want to go through each one, so you can basically see different like choices that you have, what different options that you have in terms of basically borrowing against your XRP, that kind of thing. And these are really effective solutions if you want to keep hold of your XRP, not obviously sell it, but still be able to benefit from it for the long term. Now, the one thing that I will say as always with this, you do have to understand what you are doing when it comes to this stuff. Please don't just think this is going to be like free money. Like, there are stipulations in place and you can lose your XRP if you don't understand the rules of how it works and stuff like that. So you do have to be cautious. I'm not trying to, ignore that. Please do your own research in that regard. But if you can do this in an effective way and you play by the rules, you effectively can get money where you can basically use your XRP to get not free money, because you will have to pay, interest back, but you will benefit in the long term, and you effectively won't need to, you basically won't need to sell your XRP. The other plus side about this, now again, when I'm saying this works for how it is in my country. I think that you should all just do your own research, just ensure that this is correct. When you borrow against something, you effectively are taking on debt, right? So this wouldn't be classed as a capital gain because you're not selling the asset. You're actually taking a loan against the asset, which means you're taking on a debt. That basically doesn't trigger capital gains. It's a debt. It's a loan that you're going to pay back. So effectively, it means that you don't actually pay tax on this as well. So this is something that, if it's done right, it can be very effective. So let's get into this then. Let's show you the different things that we've got here, the different methods. Okay, so the analyst who's talking about this is James Jeweler, and he says, XRP analyst James Jeweler says the new lending infrastructure on the XRP ledger could eventually let holders borrow against their XRP without selling it. Now, some of these avenues are actually already available, but there's other things that are also in the pipeline. So that's why he's talking about the infrastructure coming in the future, basically, right? So let's get to the options that we have here. Okay, so borrow against your XRP without selling. According to Jeweler, XRP holders can already use their tokens as collateral for crypto-backed loans through Coinbase, which added XRP as eligible collateral earlier this year. I did double check that as well. That is correct. Yes, you can now use XRP as a loan through Coinbase. So this is one avenue that you have. He used a hypothetical example. An investor holding 10,000 XRP worth about 1 million, assuming an XRP price of $100, could pledge 2,500 XRP valued at around $250,000. With a loan to value ratio of roughly 49%, the investor could borrow about $120,000 in USDC without selling their XRP. Okay, so yes, obviously, first and foremost, understand that was a hypothetical. So we're talking about the numbers that you're using and the value of XRP. Obviously, XRP isn't at $100, so you've got to understand that these are all just hypothetical numbers just to explain it. But yeah, the logic is sound in terms of what he's talking about here. So, just whatever the price is, if you just want to basically take some money out against XRP, because let's just be realistic here. Where we are in the market right now, we don't know how long it could take to weather this storm. Whether we want to call it a bear market, a mid-cycle correction, whatever it is, right? We're basically not in a position right now where the market's really going. So as it stands right now, this is the time where it might be good for you guys to, want to try and make some money with XRP without having to sell it, right? So this is like a good time to be doing this. Now, again, that's not financial advice. That's up to you guys. You've got to make a decision that's best for yourselves. But this is the kind of thing where you could basically just borrow against the XRP through Coinbase. They'll give you the amount depending on the loan to value ratio. So what's the loan to value ratio? So the loan to value ratio, LTV, is just basically what you're going to get in terms of the loan to the value, to the ratio of the value, sorry. And so just think about it like this. We'll go with 50%. So if you just say you had, let's just say $100,000 worth of XRP, right? So your XRP, no matter however many tokens you hold, let's just say it was worth $100,000. if the LTV, loan to value ratio, was 50%, that means that you could get $50,000 worth of currency, basically, right? Based on that $100,000 worth of XRP that you hold. So the loan to value ratio is half, 50%. So that's basically how it works. Now, I'm not someone who's done all this before personally, so I don't know what good LTV rates are. So again, this is why I say like you have to like look it up and find out what are classed as good loan to value ratios. And it's also what's good for you, right? It comes to like your risk appetite. So, you know, you might look at the loan to value ratio and think, I don't like that, right? Like even if that's considered a good LTV, you may look at that and think, I don't think it's worth the risk personally. So this is where, you know, it's going to come down to your personal decision on what you feel is worth the risk and whether you feel that's a good deal or not, right? But this is an option that you have. So straight away, you've got their Coinbase as an option where you can do a crypto-backed loan. So the next thing you've got here is a crypto-backed mortgage. So Jeweler also pointed out a recent milestone involving Better Home and Finance and Coinbase. The companies completed the first Fannie Mae backed mortgage in the United States using Bitcoin as collateral. He said the structure combines a traditional mortgage with a separate crypto-backed loan for the down payment. Unlike many crypto-backed loans, the pledged Bitcoin is not automatically liquidated if its price falls, as long as the borrower continues making mortgage payments. Although XRP is not supported under that program, Jeweler said it shows that crypto-backed financing could evolve. He believes similar structures could eventually be expanded to include XRP. Yeah, okay, so this is one where you can see now where we start to look at the options of this kind of thing, right? Now, obviously, as he just said at the end, XRP is not included in this. I do think over time that's just going to happen because XRP is like a top 5 crypto. I do think over time way more cryptos will become accessible. Like I don't think it's just going to stick to Bitcoin, you know, like typically you normally get Bitcoin and Ethereum because obviously top 2 cryptos, Bitcoin's the first, so we always know that's got obviously the most liquidity, etc. It's the biggest crypto that we know, it's the OG, so of course that's going to be, it's always going to be the first pick as it stands right now. But I do think as this gets more and more widely adopted, it will come over time. So for example, even with the Coinbase backed loans, the first ones that was accepted were Bitcoin and Ethereum, but then XRP has now been added later on. So I just think that's naturally how it's going to work. And this is one of those things where maybe as we get, like, for example, the Clarity Act, that might help things as well because there's a lot more acknowledgement and recognition about these cryptos. They're a lot more adopted. So that could help with the options being a lot bigger. And it'll also help phase out a lot of these nonsense coins, right? So you're not going to be like taking out a loan against like a meme coin, for example, because that's the kind of thing that they don't want, because all that's going to happen is that's going to be a nightmare. There's going to be liquidations and, you know, going riot crazy. So obviously that's not a good idea. But yes, this is the difference. So liquidations, this is something that you also need to know. Like, for example, with, you know, the Coinbase backed loan, what you have to understand is, you know, if XRP was to drop significantly in value, there can be liquidation thresholds. And what that basically means is if you take out the loan, for example, and let's say you take out the loan and XRP at that time was worth, let's just say $3, right? We'll stick with the current numbers that we've had recently. So let's say you got it at the peak and it's around $3. You could have a liquidation target of if XRP was to drop down to, let's just say $1, it could say that you will just automatically get liquidated. And what that basically means is they will just sell the XRP. So you just lose the XRP automatically. And this is why I say you have to do your own research to understand how this works, because you need to know that there are going to be stipulations in place where you can potentially lose your XRP. Like, it's not guaranteed that you will get to keep it. Now, as you can see with this one, as they've said with the crypto-backed mortgage loan, it's different because even if the crypto does go down in value, if you continue to make payments, they won't just automatically liquidate you. So from a risk appetite perspective, this one may be a bit more suitable for you, right? Because you may not be so worried about potentially getting liquidated. You think, okay, well, if the price does dramatically drop, as long as I can keep the payments going, it's fine. Because this is the thing that you've got to understand with crypto, right? Crypto is very volatile. And that's why with these loans, you have got to really be careful with it, because we know how big the price drops and rises can be. Now, this can work to your benefit as well. So understand that this works both ways, because although you could say, you know, okay, the price drops dramatically and you get liquidated. Let's say the price dramatically goes higher. right? Well, what can happen then is whatever you owe, they could turn around and say, well, the value of your XRP now covers whatever you owe us. So you can either just call it a day and get your XRP back, and we'll just take what you owe us out of the rising value and give you back, whatever XRP you put in, or they'll actually allow you to borrow more. They'll say, because it's a lot higher in value, if you want to borrow more, then that's fine. So you actually do have two options here where it can go either way. It can either, get you liquidated, or it could actually end up paying off the loan itself without you having to keep making payments. So it swings and roundabouts, right? Like there's ups and downs to this, but this is where you have got to be careful, because if you're doing this in a bull market, we know that bull markets don't go on forever. So you could be taking it alone in the hype and, the hysteria of a bull market, and then you go into a bear market and the prices just plummet from there and it's struggling to recover. So this is where you've got to really think about how you're going to do this and make sure that you're cautious so that you don't get liquidated, right? But as I say, if this is the crypto-backed mortgage loan, this one doesn't just straight liquidate you. So this one might be something that you're a lot more comfortable with. And again, this is something that you could use to pay off your house, and you don't even have to sell your XRP. You still have it at the end of paying the mortgage. So imagine that. Like, again, if you're a long-term holder, this is something where over time, as well as the XRP goes up in value, it could be paying off the house for you, right? Because if the XRP keeps growing and growing and growing in value over the years, although yes, you're still making payments, the rise in value means it's paying off the loan as well for you because it's growing in value. Or again, you could go into a crazy bull market, the price goes so high that, hey, your mortgage is done. Like you've covered it. Do you want us to give you whatever remaining XRPs back and we'll just take the rest as our profit that we've made for the interest of the loan? You can say, yeah, that's it. And then your house has been paid for. You haven't lost your XRP. So you can see here the type of options that you have. Okay, the last one that I just wanted to go through, and this is one that I've actually, I've gone through with you guys before. So looking ahead, Jeweler said proposed XRP lending features, including the XLS-66D, could further expand XRP's utility. In his scenario, XRP that is not used as collateral could be deposited into a single asset vault. There, it would earn yield by supplying liquidity to institutional borrowers. Assuming annual yields of 4% to 7%, Jeweler estimated that 7,500 XRP valued at $100 each could generate between $30,000 and $52,000 a year. He compared that with a hypothetical borrowing cost of about 3.2% annually on the pledged XRP. That will result in interest expenses of roughly $3,800 per year. So yeah, again, this is one of those things where this is one of the things that I've covered with you guys recently. Now, just to be completely clear, this actually isn't in place yet. This is something that's still being discussed and whatnot with the validator, so it's not actually available as of right now, but they are looking to get it implemented. So we'll see how things go as to when that happens or if it definitely does, but it's definitely something that's being discussed. Now, again, we're talking about XRP being $100, so just remember these are hypothetical numbers, so you might be hearing some of these numbers of what you could get in your mouth's watering. Just understand these are hypothetical numbers. It's not what the current price is, so obviously it's going to be very different. But again, this is another option for you to go down if it does become available. The good thing with this as well is you're going to be doing this with absolutely no middleman, right? So with Coinbase, you got to remember that you're going to have to go through like KYC, that kind of thing. And so I don't know what that could mean. So, if you used to put a lot of crypto XRP onto your Coinbase account, could that trigger them to have to like send this information to, in the UK, HMRC, or in the US, IRS, for example? So I don't know that kind of thing and how that would work. Whereas with this is going to be it's going to be anonymous because you're just doing it through the XRP ledger. So there's going to be no middleman whatsoever. So in that regard, you'll be absolutely fine. Right, you'll be absolutely fine to just do it through the network, complete DeFi, and you'll get the yield completely whenever you want. So again, if this is something where you're a bit cautious about having to do KYC through Coinbase and stuff like that, because it says it doesn't require KYC, etc., but you're going to have to do KYC to have an account with them. So although they're not going to be asking for KYC details in terms of whether you're eligible for the loan and stuff, they're going to have your details anyway. So, that's one of those things where it's a bit slick the way they've said that, but They are going to have your information. But on the XRP ledger, obviously you're just an account, you're just a wallet basically, so you can just do what you want. They're not going to know. They're not going to know who you are. As long as you've got the collateral, it's fine. So that might be something that people would be interested in too. So those are all of the options. So as you can see, there's a few different ones there, and the different ones have different reasons as to why you might be, more interested in one than the other. And this is why I say it's got to come down to your choice. Like, some people might not want to risk, putting their XRP up as collateral point blank. Some people might be worried that they're going to lose the XRP, so they might just say, I'm just not willing to risk it, which is fair enough. It's not for everyone. And it is something where you have got to understand how it works so that you don't just, get wrecked basically. So it's definitely going to take some, investigation, doing some research and really understanding this, but there's options out there. So for people who are just like long-term holders, this might be the option for you, where, you're not having to sell the XRP, but you're still getting money out of it, right? Plus, it's also appreciating, it's also appreciating value over time. So you could make money in it in two ways, right? Through the appreciation of value, but also by getting these loans. And obviously, the big thing about this is that you're not paying tax, right? They're not classed as a capital gain event. That's massive, because, one thing that we all hate is knowing that you make this money with crypto, and then next thing you know, you've got a huge tax bill on your hands. So that could be a huge benefit. So I'll leave it there, guys, but there's some options for you to consider, some things for you to think about, and obviously just do your own research. And if you think any of those are suitable for yourself, look into it more. You never know, this could be something that's hugely beneficial for you guys. I wish you good luck if you do it. And as I say, just make sure you understand it all properly. Don't just go in, blind, because that's how you're going to end up messing up. So just understand what you're really doing before you do go ahead with this. Okay, if you did like this video, please remember to like, comment and subscribe so you can be updated for future XRP content. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be alerted on when I do drop a new video. Thank you very much for watching this, and I'll see you all on the next one.